All right. It's not doing it. Okay, let's go.
an S1 spike that looks very similar, if not exactly, to what's on the COVID-19 spike.
What are you referring to, Senator? Can you please be more specific?
Yeah. So I'm talking about the S1 subunit of the current COVID-19 spike.
What about, I mean, are you talking about an experiment? Are you talking about a paper that was published?
So I'm talking about viral research that was done using NIH funding with the North Carolina lab, and Dr. Shi developed this S1 subunit spike that looks exactly like what we have on the current COVID-19 spike.
Yeah.
Is that not true?
No, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. Are you referring to the paper of Barrick and Shi in Nature Immunology? Is that what you're referring? I need to know specifically.
Yeah, so Dr. Barrick and Shi printed studies on this S1 unit that was basically the development of the key to the door that was specifically took the original SARS virus and made it so it would bond to the human lung cells.
No, there was no gain. If you're referring, Senator, to gain of function, by the definition.
Okay, that's not my question.
Well,
but would you agree that the spike that was developed there is what's also on the current?
Yeah, but that's irrelevant to anything until you have a context in which you're putting it. You're talking about an S1 and a spike in what context? If you're talking about a paper that was written by them?
But you agree or disagree that it's the same spike?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Senator. I'm really not sure what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, we got him! We got him! Yes!
You better move. You better dance. Let's make a night.
I won't remember, you better one. You won't forget. What's this? Oh, all right. I am Jarrin Jackson. I love America. Thank you for watching. This is America's Thought Stream. I'm going to start saying that. Everyone's got their own thing. I'm America's this. I'm America's that. You know what? I'm the Patriot Thought Stream. You come here to think about stuff. Not just to get told stuff. You come here to think about stuff. Because we aren't stupid. You aren't stupid. You want more than just, did you know that these godless commies are evil? Do you know that they're just doing really bad things? Yes. They're godless commies. That's what they do. You come here because your brain wants more than just, this is really bad. This is really bad. We got him, folks. We got him. Did you know that Rand Paul cross-examined Dr. Anthony Fauci of the Fauci Ouchie fame, the Olivia Rodrigo to the White House to get your vaccine fame. And did you know that this guy is very, very smart? This Anthony Fauci, I'm telling you, he was caught flat-footed the first time by Rand Paul. This time is not going to happen. We're going to do a body language analysis of Senator Rand Paul versus Dr. Anthony Fauci, and it's going to be good. It's going to be very, very good. And I'm going to tell you that this is the Timbre of Timbre. Now, some of you are like, what was it? Come on, Jarrin, I know English is a really weird language. It is. But what is the Timbre of Timbre? Timbre is just a characterization of a sound or a voice that is distinct from its intensity. So if you can think about the quality of a voice the quality of a speech, or in this case, the spirit behind the meanings of words, that's my meaning here. If you can think of the spirit of meaning behind how words are presented, you will understand the spiritual war that you're in. My friends, this one is going to be one where you want to just be like, yeah, that makes sense. So we're going to be doing a body language analysis of Fauci versus Rand Paul. I think that's great because there's a lot of things to look at it there. We're going to be doing a update, including Democrats telling people not to get the daisy. We're going to completely say daisy from here on out because I don't want YouTube to smack me anymore. And a lot of people are still watching me on Facebook and YouTube. Please check the links in the description below to figure out that whenever they shut the lights off and they kick me from their platforms, you guys aren't like, well, I guess Jarrin just disappeared. No, I didn't disappear, folks. The godless commies kicked me off their platform because they don't want me telling the truth. I am Jarrin Jackson. I love America. Most importantly is my bias. I am a Bible-believing Christian, constitutional defending, patriotic, Rush baby Linwood, multiple time endorsed Trump supporter. The reason why that's important is because the death, the burial, the resurrection is the only way to salvation. Go to heaven, my friends. Do not go to hell in a conscious, eternal torment lake of fire. It's going to be horrible. Horrible. And just because your pride is so much that you don't want to bend the knee and confess Christ as King, do it because it's awesome to be in His love, to be in His grace, His mercy. I'm a Bible-believing Christian. The Bible's the Word of God. That's how I know the gospel's true. And that's going to come into play today because there is a conclusion that we're going to get at the Timbre of Timbre. And to distinguish between the two timbres, Timbre is Timbre. Timber, as we like to say, the timber! That is Timberrrrr, capital R. So it's timber, right? Look, we want these godless commies to dangle after due process. A lot of people say I'm open for violence and everything. No, not at all. I'm open for legitimate, justified, moral, biblical, righteous use of force when an evildoer needs to be checked. In America, we've got due process. So with that, I want to roll the rock and let's get to a couple different memes. I found these to be inspirational and interesting. Roll the rock. The first one is, I'm out here at the Homestead. Look at that. Look at that picture. We cannot force someone to hear a message they are not ready to receive, but we must never underestimate the power of planting a seed. Amen. Jesus has a parable where the parable of the sower is just out there scattering seeds, scatter seeds, scatter seeds, scatter seeds, scatter. And it's all about dirt. It's all about the dirt. The condition of the dirt, which is really the condition of the heart. Is it ready to receive the message or not? So you preach the gospel in season and out of season, and the gospel is the death, the burial, the resurrection. We preach Christ crucified. It's not supposed to make logical sense. It's supposed to be spiritually true. Because it is. The other meme that I got was this. Someone sent me this. This is great. Grandma survived during the Depression because her supply chain was local and she knew how to do stuff. That is amazing. I don't know if someone in the audience ripped that off and sent it to me or if they made it for me because that's kind of how I talk. Anyway, I love it. I also want to know and let you know that I am wearing my Canadian tuxedo for this evening. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this denim shirt. That's right. Canadian tuxedo. That's how you know I'm all fancy. It's, anyway. Roll the rock. Let's get to the update. Did you know that there's going to be an emergency broadcast system use on August 11? Write that down. Acting chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel, that's a nice name, today announced that for the first time ever, the FCC is entering into partnerships with 11 federal, state, and local agencies to assess the delivery of the wireless emergency alerts in areas across the country during a planned nationwide test on August 11. My friends, go. Like, heads up. Get your stuff ready to rock. Now, this could just be like testing. This is a test of the wireless emergency broadcast. But anytime the government, different agencies are starting to team up to do a singular thing, I'm like, you guys don't need to be doing that. I don't need y'all guys to tell me about stuff. I don't need y'all teaming up with local and state authorities. I need you to, one, get smaller, like my dad's cancer, like smaller and dead. Smaller and go away. Go away. But the emergency broadcast system is August 11. Just interesting. Put that in your calendar. Mark that down. Listen to this godless commie at the satanic, Council on Foreign Relations. Listen to what this guy has to say.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do.
Now that is one explanation. Get ready, folks. We're about to get crazy. And when I say get crazy, we're about to explore an alternative explanation for why those straight lines in the sky always just seem to happen.
And chemtrails, by the way, barium salts are in chemtrails. They are 10,000 times more toxic to your nervous system than lead. They contain mycobacteria, viruses, Pseudomonas florensis bacteria, human plasma. Wonder what human plasma is doing in chemtrails. And this is not by conjecture. I did a lot of research before I'd ever say this. But these chemtrails are nasty. And there's three reasons for chemtrails. The first is and I talked to my NSA buddies at Fort Carson, Peterson Air Force Base, and Buckley, where I was actually their doctor taking care of the pilots flying and spraying the chemtrails. So I know it's real. If anybody says it's not real, they're full of it. Okay? Because I'm a whistleblower. On the inside, it's not open for discussion. And my NSA buddies told me, 95% of them told me they were up there trying to spray to reflect the sun out to stop global warming. So most of them are dumb enough to believe that garbage. Okay? And also in the chemtrails, and there's a link directly that Jeff Francis found out. I'm going to have Dr. Staninger and Dr. Carjou on in about a week on my radio show. And I've done some investigations, and there's very solid evidence now that Morgellons is caused by a silicon-based nanomachine life form that does not originate on planet Earth. Is that not interesting?
Yeah, I don't know, folks. All I know is that planes fly in the air, and then there's like straight lines of smoke out from behind them. You just had Godless Commie. Why do I call him Godless Commie? Because John Brennan's a Godless Commie. The guy was involved in the 2020 election heist. Like, the dude's a Godless Commie. But there he was talking about SAI, making sure that they could reflect the dangerous rays from the sun. You know, because the universe that God made us, the sun is so dangerous, we need to block it out, like Bill Gates wants to. So John Brennan is at the Council on Foreign Relations, which I wonder who's behind that. And these people are saying that it's to protect us from global warming. Yes! But the subtext is that they're manipulating the way that the environment does stuff and how the atmosphere functions. That's interesting, but that is one perspective. The theme of this live stream is have the discernment to test the spirits from what you hear. The spiritual war comes in through your eyes and in through your ears and dominates the key terrain for the prize, which is your soul. Now, when someone tells you something, including myself, you need to make sure you do the research. British. But that person with the push broom was saying that there's an alternative use to chemtrails, and that is to do a lot of bad stuff. I don't know what the truth is. I don't. Because the only way I can find out about this stuff is on the internet. The source of all truth, right? But just understand that that's the case. Now, why do I show this? Why do I bring up SAI with John Brennan talking about stuff on the Council on Foreign Relations, and why did I bring up Push Broom talking about chemtrails and including off-world silicon life forms? Why do I do that? Well, because there's real stuff like this. This is from our other Satanist friends, Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum. Listen what his organization put out last year. 280 billion tons. More. Yeah, so they're manipulating weather. 280 billion tons in addition to what they were doing. Why do I bring this up about godless commie China? Why is godless commie China trying to do this? Look at this footage from China.
超到翻了你，
这都直接机器了。
超到翻了你。
那是自然路。
啊，那个，你等我。
站地铁了，来个车。
That's what you get for trying to mess with God's world. Don't mess with God's earth. Take care of it. Steward it. Don't try to manipulate it. Godless commie, they don't believe in Jesus. Because of that, they're going to try to manipulate things. And they don't care about people. They don't care about those ants that died. Those cars that were overturned, the property. They don't care. They don't care. You think the godless commies care about people? Come on. Godless commie's going to godless commie. Speaking of people who do not believe in Jesus, here is a prayer group of Muslims in Kabul during Eid, which is a fake, stupid religious festival. Listen to what's going on in the background.
Allahu liman hamida. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Whenever I was in Afghanistan the first time, there were mosques all around our little base. So we were out in the boonies in Sabari. And when the call to prayer would go off, Obama grew up, because he's Muslim, grew up and he would say that one of the most glorious sounds was the call to prayer. I disagree. Every single morning for my deployment, anytime I heard the call to prayer, I couldn't help but think of getting wounded and on patrol, kidnapped, and had my head chopped off by a Muslim. That was my thought every single time. And still to this day, anytime I hear the call to prayer, I just shudder. It's a garbage noise. It's a horrible, horrible thought. And for those people who are thinking about that, think about this. Islam. What does Islam mean? You know what Islam means? Submission. What kind of submission? Not the type of submission that you have towards Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for your sins, because while we were still sinners, he loved us. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that if you believe in him, you will have eternal salvation. That's not the type of submission. This is not the type of humble submission that talks about in Philippians chapter 2. This is the type of warlike submission that you will bend the knee and acknowledge that Muhammad, death be upon him, the final prophet who is in hell because he didn't believe the gospel, he said in a hadith, Sahih Bukhari, he said that he made his living by the shade of his spear. So you have Jesus Christ, who died for people's sins, and Matthew 26:51 did not call 10,000 angels to fight the Roman legion that was there, the Roman troop that was there, to arrest him in the middle of the night, to conduct a trial in the middle of the night. Jesus could have called 10,000 angels, and he didn't. Muhammad, Surah 9, Surah 9, verse 29, all Surah 9, by the way. The Quran is not in chronological order. Generally how the Bible is, Old Testament, New Testament. The Quran is in, length of revelation order. So Surah 1, largest revelation. 2, slightly smaller but bigger than 3, bigger than 4, then bigger than 5. But Surah 9 is the last major revelation of Muhammad. And in Islam, they have something that's called abrogation, where if there is a most recently revealed, whatever doctrine is most recently revealed, it abrogates or cuts off or nullifies or washes over previous teachings. And this is important because Muhammad's empire, his history really is in two halves, Medina and Mecca. One is peaceful and one is generally vicious and violent and a military overlord. Surah 9 is the last major revelation of Muhammad, and that's where you get 929, fight those who do not believe in the last day, and subdue them with jizya, which is like a slave tax. It's a conquered person tax. Like if you're going to live in an Islamic country, you have to pay their tax or you're going to have your head chopped off. So I bring this up. The reason why I say this is a stupid fake religion and a stupid fake ceremony is because they're worshiping a satanic being. Like when Muhammad first started receiving revelation, he thought it was the devil. He tried to kill himself. He tried to throw himself off a cliff. It wasn't until he went to his wife, who was a merchant, by the way, who convinced him, oh, no, that's not the devil. Those are revelations from Gabriel, which is not the same name. But, no, that's not Satan talking to you. It's an angel. You should write that stuff down, and you're the only one that gets it. But you should write that stuff down so that we can kind of be in charge. It's like, come on, man. Come on, man. The Biden, come on, man. So, yeah, it's a stupid fake religion. Do not respect it. Preach the gospel. The gospel is truth. You should love these people by telling them that they believe in something that's horrible. Which is interesting because if there's rockets flying overhead, and those weren't rockets, by the way, those were recoilless rifles. How do I know that? By the sound of the zip. By the sound of the... I should say... A larger caliber rocket's going to scream. It's not going to zip. Those were zips. Those weren't screams. So they were close. But did you see? Did you see after how many years of warfare? You could tell the Afghans that had been kind of living in comfort. You can tell the Afghans that had good relationships with Americans because those are the ones who are like, oh no, things are going on. All the other Afghans that like weren't paying attention to the things and were like continuing doing their ab exercises. Those were the ones that they'd probably been around some stuff and they probably knew what was going on. But it's just interesting because this is demonstrating where competing worldviews, engage the world. I wonder how many of those people doing their ab exercises are sitting there going, maybe my religion's not the right one. Maybe my religion's not the right one and I don't want to die. It's always there. Death is always there. It's always there. It's going to come get you. Believe in the gospel, folks. If you are British, you might celebrate Boris Johnson for saying stuff like this. Watch this.
What I don't think we will have in this country is, as it were, vaccination passports to allow you to go to, say, the pub or something like that. I think that.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was earlier this year. I meant to play this from today.
I've noticed now that by the end of September, when all over 18s will have had their chance to be double jabbed, we're planning to make full vaccination the condition of entry to nightclubs and other venues where large crowds gather. Proof of a negative test will no longer be enough.
His haircut resembles his thinking and his morality. Did you know that President Trump was hip to be square on the whole mail-in stuff before it happened? This is President Trump of April 2020. I'm showing you this because I'm building what's going on. Listen, this is President Trump, the president.
Somebody that needs it, I'm all for it. But they have to be very careful because the things with bundling and all of the things that are happening with votes by mail, where thousands of votes are gathered, and I'm not going to say which party does it, but thousands of votes are gathered and they come in and they're dumped in a location, and then all of a sudden you lose elections that you think you're going to win. I won't stand for it. Well, we're going to find out about the proof because you're going to see what's going on. And I'm not going to stand for it. Our voting system, first of all, we should have voter ID. When you vote, you should have voter ID. And if you send something in, you should be sure, as a state and as a country, you should be sure that that vote is meaningful and it's not just made fraudulently, because there's a lot of fraudulent voting going on in this country. This country should have voter ID.
Democrats at the state level in the state of Georgia, which is allegedly much more fraudulent than the state of Arizona, which is much more fraudulent than the state of Pennsylvania. But Democrats at the state level in the state of Georgia agreed with President Trump as recently as last year.
Isn't it true that the voting servers at KSU were hacked? That is true. And isn't it true that there's no way to know if the DRE machines have been hacked? That's exactly right. And isn't it true that there was an anomaly in the 2018 lieutenant governor's race in which undervotes were recorded on the DREs, but not the absentee ballots, which are hand-marked paper ballots? That is true. And that the chances of this happening by chance are near zero? That's exactly right. And you raise another really important point, that we don't have any idea if these machines were ever hacked because there is no paper trail, and we also can't look at the source code. The same problem exists with these machines. It's a private for-profit industry, a point I believe that the senator from the 40th astutely made, which means that we are dedicating our public trust for our most sacred and foundational right to companies that will not let us test their machines for vulnerability.
Yeah, evidence that Democrats sometimes are correct. They just, not whenever we need them to be. Hillary Clinton, Galascami Hillary Clinton. She also, in 2016, right after she lost at her coronation, she also predicted bad things could happen in the election system. Watch this. This is from Her Highness, Sir Hillary Rodham Clinton, sir.
Experts in Silicon Valley with whom I have met, who say that, maybe what they'll do this next time is to really disrupt the actual election. Shut down the servers that you send results to. Interfere with the operation of voting machines, because still too many of them are linked to the internet. So we are still very vulnerable.
Yeah, kind of reminds me whenever they say stuff like this.
Put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Folks, we got a lot of work to do. I don't even need you to get me elected. I need you once I'm elected.
It's no longer just about who gets to vote or making it easier for eligible voters to vote. It's about who gets to count the vote.
Amen. It is about who counts the votes. And we here at the Jarrin Jackson live stream, America's thought stream, I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. I like it. Patriot stream, thought stream, something like that. Anyway, we'll roll the rock and we'll get into the Fauci Rand Paul thing. So today we're not going to be focused on the uncovering of the audits. And I hear you skeptics in the back. They're like, yeah, but so what? I'm answering the so what here in phase 1 when we talk about the Timbre of Timbre. The Timbre of Timbre. Now remember, Timbre, Timbre, is the unique quality of a voice or a song that's separate from its intensity or its volume. In other words, if you are a horse whisperer, it doesn't matter that you speak softly. What matters is that the unique quality of your voice, the timbre of your voice, is the thing that communicates to the horse. If you are a truth whisperer, I'm not a truth whisperer, I'm a truth pounder. I'm pounding this thing like Iron Man. But if you are the timbre, here's my point. The godless commies are going to be communicating in through people's ears in a way that they will also see that Anthony Fauci is doing. And you can already tell. I'm about to play a clip. This clip is the Rand Paul cross-examining Anthony Fauci. It's like 3 minutes long. I'm going to play it in its entirety, and then we're going to chop it up and we're going to respond to it because there's a lot of richness here. But I'm doing this as a microcosm of the larger godless commies against you type of movement. So if you can listen for this phase 1 right here, when we talk about Rand Paul versus Dr. Fauci, many of the observations and the techniques that Fauci's doing cross-apply to everyone else in the godless commie, offensive, the godless commie side. And what I really like about what Rand Paul does is he specifies the one thing that counters it. And so there's just a lot to learn in this one little clip. There's a lot of nuances about these things that they're talking about that I'm not going to cover. Other people can do that. What I want to do is I'm interested in the interplay of ideas, because at its core, this exchange between Rand Paul and Anthony Fauci is about which variation, which perspective on truth, which commentary on true things moving forward is going to carry the day. Make no mistake. They're talking about viruses and funding and gain of function. They're talking about all sorts of stuff. But the issue is who defines this issue. What version of reality, what talking point, what narrative, what story, what perspective will become dominant moving forward on this particular issue. And if you understand that, you will understand that this is what the godless commies do with everything. And so if you're able to understand that, you can highlight their premise, identify what they're doing, and smash it, which is what we will do phase 2. So phase 1, here we go. Here is the Rand Paul Fauci video. We will play it in its entirety. Look at the body language, the shaking hands, the fingers, the hands. Look at all that stuff. Soak it in, and then we'll do it. So this is just amazing. Watch this.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans,
Right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. Okay, you get one person.
Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among mammals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
And let's send Dr. Fauci.
I have to, well, now you're getting into something. If the point that you are making is that the grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan created SARS-CoV-2, that's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Wait a
It
minute.
didn't come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator, because if you look at the viruses that were used in the experiments, that were given in the annual reports, that were published in the literature, it is molecularly impossible.
No one's saying those viruses caused it.
It
No
is
one is alleging that
molecularly.
those viruses caused the pandemic. What we're alleging is that gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That
You
is
can't
not-
get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating the truth.
Senator
You are the
Paul's
one.
time is expired, but I will allow the witness to.
Let me just finish. I want everyone to understand that if you look at those viruses, and that's judged by qualified virologists and evolutionary biologists, those viruses are molecularly impossible
No one's
to
saying they
result
are. No
in
one's saying those viruses
SARS-CoV-2.
caused the pandemic. We're saying they are gain-of-function viruses because they were animal viruses that became more transmissible in human, and you funded it.
And you
admit the truth.
And you implying.
Paul, your time has expired, and I will allow witnesses who come before this committee to respond.
And you are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Ooh, all right. Heated. I want to say a couple things before we get going. You saw that. I know you're not dumb. I know you get it. A couple different things as we go to this body language. And I want to frame this. Because I started this live stream with Senator Marshall, a GOP senator, cross-examining Anthony Fauci. Remember whenever he was talking about, is this the S1 spike protein, and this is the S1 spike protein, and don't you think that these are the right ones? And Dr. Fauci said this.
But that's irrelevant to anything until you have a context in which you're putting it.
Yeah, so I want to hear that again. Listen to what he's saying.
But that's irrelevant to anything until you have a context in which you're putting it.
Now, I've watched the Rand Paul Fauci video a couple times because I went to it like this. So my bias, just so you know, I think Fauci's a crook. I think he's a member of the New World Order. I think he's a member of the cabal. I think he's done all this on purpose. I think he should due process. But that's my bias. So I'm approaching this as, okay, Jarrin, that's your bias. Set that to the side. Let's examine, could he be correct? Could Fauci be telling the truth? Now, this is an uncomfortable question that people won't readily like to ask, which is why we have to ask it. We have to ask it, and then we have to demand certain standards across the board. Whenever I ask, could Dr. Fauci be telling the truth? I think that he has convinced himself of a lie so that he is telling himself the truth. I will say, how can I liken this? In World War II, the Allies had air superiority, and they were trying to figure out what to bomb. There's just so much stuff in the Nazi Germany to bomb. They had to figure out what to bomb. Some smart clickety-clack person figured out, let's bomb the ball bearings factory. Because if we bomb the ball bearings factory, ball bearings are used for rocket production, they're used for tank manufacturing, they're used for bullet, they're used for all this other stuff. And so ball bearings, if you destroy ball bearings, you actually cripple the production lines for several different things. Does that make sense? And so what I think has happened is and I can't prove this. I cannot prove this. This is my speculation based on Anthony Fauci being very specific about his specific context. I believe Dr. Anthony Fauci is propagating a very specific defense that if anyone ever called him on it, and if they really had the political will to go further, I think this is the explanation that allows him to be as adamant as he is. Here's what I think happened. I can't prove this. So what I'm about to say is complete speculation, okay? Here's what I think. I think you have the virus, right? I think you've got the virus, and I think you've got parts of its production. Different locations, different teams, all sorts of stuff. I can't prove this, but I think that Wuhan is one of multiple places where this was developed. Either this, or if Wuhan was the only place that this virus was developed, there was partitions at Wuhan. So this might be US, this might be China, this might be France, and this might be, Venezuela or whatever. So you might have different countries at the same location. But what I think happened, in order to get this Nazi war machine, you had the ball bearings factory right there. And I think that what Rand Paul has done is he found out that US taxpayer dollars were involved in this plot. Now, what I don't think anyone is saying on the GOP side is this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Multiple locations doing different things. I think what they're saying is U.S. taxpayer dollars were involved with gain-of-function research. And that is the premise that Fauci is going to reject at all costs. The way that he does it, and we're about to go with it. The way that he does it is he does authority. He does by his authority, and he does by the definition. So this is what he does. Dr. Anthony Fauci appeals to experts who are the best people of the subject matter experts, the PhDs, the people who are the best at the thing, and he appeals to the technical definition of things. Now, what's very interesting to me is that whenever they're talking about spike proteins and this and that, and lipid nanoparticles, and like, man, I don't know about that stuff. Even though I've got a PhD in stuffology from Harvard, a quantum PhD in quantum stuffology from Harvard. So I know about stuff. But I'm not an expert, and I'm not a virologist and immunologist. And that is exactly what Anthony Fauci, this is his first line of defense. His first line of defense is expertise. You notice, and you listen, when he says this was the judgment of experts. When he says the judgment of experts, the timbre of timbre is appeal to expertise. These are your PhDs. These are your blue check marks. These are your moneyed people. Jeff Bezos shooting himself into space because he's rich. This is all these people. The experts. The people who are the experts. This is the thorn in the side of Western civilization's downfall. This worship of expert people. Fauci's no different, and this is the first plank of what he's done. The second thing is language. This is the definition. Whenever he's specifying what the definition is, if you don't match his definition, or if you don't match the definition of his experts, then you don't know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, then you are dumb. See what I did there? So that's what he's doing. So with that, let's take that subtext, let's take that explanation, and let's go to the body language. I'm going to play it, then I'm going to shrink it so you can see my glorious beard and the thing at the same time. Hold on.
But that's
Pause this. No, I don't want that. I want this.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress.
Pause. All right, so the first thing that I will say here, I'll do this. That way we can make it look like I'm looking at them. We'll do it like this. Okay, so first thing he says is knowing that it's a lie, knowing that it's a crime to lie to Congress. So Paul frames this in terms of legal. So Paul is approaching this from a legal perspective. Fauci is going to approach it from a science perspective. So at core, you have law and you have science seeming to come into conflict with each other. And so those two worldviews are going to be competing with each other for priority to determine what is the right way to consider things. If the right way to consider things is, well, it's the COVID virus and people are dying and we have to do stuff, then you listen to the PhDs, the MDs, the people with the big fancy words. If, however, you look at this and you're like, you did something that was wrong, I don't care what the Scientology stuff says, you done did bad, you're going to go to jail, then that's the legal perspective. But both assume a notion of trust and truth in order to build their case. I will make that point as we talk about the body language. The one thing that I love about this and would be intimidating, make this a little bit smaller. The one thing that I love about, no, I can't cover up DVR. The one thing I love about this is that the senators are actually sitting higher than the people they're talking to. So they're always looking down. And so do not doubt me for a second that that's not by design. The designed intimidation factor built in. And I think that if you, and I've never testified before Congress, but I think that if you're there, you walk into this forum where you have elected officials, and some of them are known on a national level, like Rand Paul. You're going to know some of these guys, and they're going to be sitting above you. So you're looking up, and they're looking down. That is a psychological, issue. That's context there. Body language, everything's context. Context is key for body language. But if there's that change in differential, if there's that differential in height, the person in the chair under oath, like Fauci, is going to recognize that either on a subliminal, subconscious level or otherwise. So that change in height is the subtext for everything that's here. So when Paul comes out the gate and he says that it's a lie, it's a crime to lie to Congress, that plus height differential, he's screwing with Fauci's psychology. That's step one. Rand Paul drew first blood. So let's go.
Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in...
Loaded question. Do you claim to retract your statement May 11? So you understand that he's now combined legal, it's criminal to lie against Congress with your May 11 statement. So he, by asking that question, he's forcing Fauci to agree with every word that was said on the May 11 testimony. If you're Fauci, now you're sitting here thinking, okay, what was said? Can I say that? Because if I agree to something that wasn't 100% accurate, I either have to defend myself or clarify moving forward, which is what he does, or I'm going to be legally obligated to this. This is a brilliant question by Paul because it naturally puts him on the defenses, or it at least is aimed to do that. Fauci responds pretty well. Watch this.
Move on.
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain.
Couple things. He said he's never lied, right? So there's the rejection. He's rejecting the premise. Fauci, the science, the medical side, has to reject the premise of the politician. This is for a war of what message is going to carry the day. This is the Timbre of Timbre. Which message will carry the day? I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I want the gospel to carry the message. I'm not going to talk about racism when God doesn't make races. He makes humans. He makes image bearers of God. I'm not going to bring in someone else's frame, because if I adopt their frame, I've lost everything. Rush Limbaugh said, you accept the premise, you lose the debate. That's what's going on here. When Paul says, do you agree with your May 11 statement because it's criminal to lie to Congress? Fauci says, I've never lied to Congress. Then, what does Fauci do? He holds up his authority. He holds up his not his Bible, but he holds up his this little article. That is a show of bravado. He is appealing to authority. This basically this thing. Now if I say I swear on this, I'm saying I swear on the Bible, but I'm holding the Bible. And so I'm able to bring and import all the meaning and all the weight that this thing has. I'm bringing it and I'm wielding it. I'm literally holding it like a weapon. And that's exactly what he does. By holding this up, that's what all these people always do. When they hold up something, they're wielding that thing like a weapon. So this is Fauci not only pushing back, but now he's going on offense. Then you say that he says that this is judged by experts all the way up and down the chain. That is a logical fallacy because it's social proofing. Who cares if every expert in the world says that this is not gain-of-function research? Are none of those people liars? Do they all have good ethics? What is their moral disposition? Do they hate America? Did the people who are on your chain at all levels benefit from gain-of-function research? Were they paid off? Non-disclosure agreement? Do they have some type of ownership in pharmaceutical companies, for example? Do they have any way to benefit? Now, if I put my Fauci hat on, Fauci is not saying medical things. He's appealing to people who are saying medical things. So Fauci is at the very brunt, he's pushing his own accountability. I mean, don't get me wrong. Do not let me lose you. He's saying those people said this, not me. Those people said this. Let's put the distinction there, and that's his technique. His technique by appealing to experts is that he is no longer accountable. Even though he's the dude that approved the grant and directed the money, he's not accountable because those people said this. Those people said this. He's a coward because he's not taking responsibility. He's blame shifting. That's exactly what he's doing, but he's doing it with much bravado. It only gets better.
As not being gain of function.
Technicalities, legalism, language, the specific definitions. And you understand, if Paul's right, and this guy did fund gain-of-function research, then this is going to be an issue settled a long time from now. There's court systems. There's going to be due process. There's going to be like hearings and a judge and like stuff like that. So Fauci's got time on his side. And in time on his side, he's able to say, well, you know, I misspoke or I judged wrong or I don't recall. Those are the magic bullets. Anytime you're under oath, I don't recall. Well, how can you get in my head and prove that I don't recall? Which is one of the reasons why you might think that these godless commies, these Satanists, want to put chips in your head so they know what you think. We're not going to go down there. Keep going.
Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans.
Right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah.
Paul is trying to simplify, to communicate, and to get to the truth. Paul is not making a medical argument. Even though he's talking about medicine and science, he's not making a medical or scientific argument. He's trying to identify what things happened. He's just trying to say, here's a blunt statement of fact. Fauci took taxpayer dollars and you did this with it. This is what you did. Don't hide behind definitions and legalistic arguments. This is what you did. Fauci replies,
that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about.
ooh, look at that head movement. Look at the head movement. Look at this head movement. This head movement is pride and ego all over it. This is, I know more than you. Look at the size of my genitals.
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially.
Look at his eyes. We're going to play this back. His eyes, whenever he says, you don't know what this is talking about, I don't know who he's looking at. My speculation, context is key. My speculation is that he's looking at other Democrats, and this is by him saying, you don't know what you're talking about, and him looking at other Democrats, which you would think that if he's saying, you don't know what you're talking about, he would be looking at the guy who's he's telling, you don't know what you're talking about. But instead of looking at the guy, Paul, instead of looking at Rand Paul saying, you, Rand Paul, don't know what you're talking about, he's saying, you don't know what you're talking about. He's looking around. He's calling for reinforcements. This is me getting pinned down in Afghanistan going, fire for effect, over. Like bring the artillery. And do not doubt me, moving forward, you will see hit pieces from the godless commie media. If this gets any kind of traction, you will see hit pieces from the godless commie media with little blurbs that says that Dr. Paul is an eye doctor. He doesn't know anything about virology. He's so stupid and he's dumb. Like that's don't doubt me. That's what they're going to say. That's what they're going to say, because this is an ad hominem. They have to destroy Rand Paul's credibility. They have to make it the case that he's not an expert. The decline of Western civilization is the glorification of experts. That's why Jarrin has a PhD from Harvard. That's why I do it. It's a satirical insult to people who elevate themselves and determine their self-worth based on a stupid piece of paper. Right there. That stupid piece of paper makes me better than you. Because it does. I said it. Boom. Right? Like, it's dumb. But that's what people think. And if people think you go to school, you get your blue check mark, you get your PhD, and you get to do whatever you want to, as long as you say the things that people think you need to say, everyone's assuming that everyone's telling the truth. Well, what if we're not telling the truth? Just because I have a degree on the wall doesn't mean I have the ethics to defend what's right and to do what's right. So what Fauci is doing is he's communicating to everyone, this guy's a moron. Tell him he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing.
You do not know what you are talking about. Okay, you get one person.
Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among mammals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals.
Paul's using the pencil. The pencil has a very short, so Paul doesn't use an expo marker. He's using a pen. This has a more specific, more narrow, and pinpointed tip than this was. Notice how Fauci's using his finger, right? So broad. There's plenty of leeway in your finger when he's pointing here. Plenty of leeway. Paul is being specific. He's nailing it down. Literally, what you're about to see is people are telling the stories with their hands. Fauci is going to start trying to do, you notice he goes from his left to the right. He's trying to move people to what Paul's premise is, the reality that Paul is speaking to. He's trying to move him this way. Paul, on the other hand, is not moving. Paul is nailing it down. Like if there's a tornado coming through, one of the projects I'm going to do is try to anchor down my my quantum studio here, the Quantum Studios of America. I'm going to nail it down. It's actually pretty cool. It's like I need to take a video of it and do it so you guys can see how I homestead. Hashtag. But the idea is that I have to nail this down. Paul is nailing it down with a very specific, very narrowly tailored argument. Fauci, moving forward, watch his hands, he's trying to move people. He's literally trying to move people from this direction to that direction. He's trying to create something else. That's what he's doing. Watch those little nuances moving forward.
And they increase their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
Bingo. That's like, do you see the specific argument? It's a dance. Well, what's the opposite of a dance? Standing still. Paul is trying to nail him down. Specific argument, very narrowly tailored, nail him down. Now you're going to see Fauci. Watch what he does. Ooh, look at that. Right there. Putting that hand up. He's either saying he's saying, I reject your premise. He's also saying, stop the assault. Stop attacking. The guy is not used to being on defense. He's getting flustered, and you're about to see his hands start to shake. So the guy is telling him to stop. So that's an arrogant perspective because he thinks he's got the position to tell people, stop attacking me. Stop attacking. It's literally what they're doing. It's like a traffic cop. Stop. Right? But that's what he's doing. He's trying to control the situation. That's what he's doing. He's rejecting Paul's point. That's primarily what's happening. But then he's building on that because he's coming from a perspective that he's right, because he's the authority, he's the expert in his world, right? So you have the two conflicts, the two authorities here, the two worldviews are the government and these scientists. And currently, they're in competition. Woe to us whenever they are in cahoots, right? This is why you want everyone to compete with the government. Everybody. Anyway, keep going.
I have to, well, now you're getting into something. If the point that you are making is that...
See? Talking down. If the point you are making, right? He's rejecting Paul's line of thinking.
The grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan.
A sub-award to EcoHealth to Wuhan. He is speaking as an administrator, identifying all the nuances and steps in the process, British, that removes his culpability from the actual product. Again, this is a multi-layered defense on Fauci. Fauci is not only saying that's not the case because you don't know what you're talking about, ad hominem, but he's also saying this is really complex and steps removed. This is a sub-award through Eve, whatever, to the place and the do whatever. Like, that's what he's doing. He's trying to create this chaos. He's pointing out to you how complex things are. And through the complexity, it can't be Anthony Fauci's fault. I'm not guilty. I had a meeting with Olivia Rodrigo the other day, and she said to take the vaccine.
Created SARS-CoV-2. That's where you are.
Bingo. I don't even have to listen to what he says. Did you see what he was doing? Doing his hand, he's literally moving you. He's walking, so he's meta-ing what's going on. Paul hasn't brought up what Paul's conclusions are. Paul is getting at the fact that Fauci used taxpayer dollars to do gain-of-function research, which increases the transmissibility of viruses and stuff from animals to humans. That's the issue. That's the issue. That's what Paul's trying to get at. Paul hasn't made any conclusions. I mean, I no doubt he has in his own mind, but he hasn't done that publicly. Fauci is preempting him by identifying those conclusions, and now what he's doing as the expert with the credentials of from on high, now he's going to not only refute them as he walks the dog, right, as he walks that process down to reject it, but now he's going to elevate himself and try to take the moral high ground where he says, I completely resent that. You have offended me completely. We'll talk about that when he does it.
Again. Let me finish.
And he says, that's where you're going to go. Both barrels, folks. Both barrels. both barrels.
We don't know. Well, wait a minute, it did come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating.
Ooh, very, very big words. I totally resent. So now he's communicating to everybody, because there's people, Dr. Fauci, give us vaccines, don't leave me, Dr. Fauci, and there's people with like throw pillows of this guy. There's a cult following of this dude. Like, they think this guy is the bee's knees, which, by the way, after owning bees, it's like, that's important, because we're not going to go down there. Stay focused, Jarrin. Report on bees later. Someone asked me about bees. Okay, stay focused. People love this guy. People love Fauci. And because he does this, he's telling people he's resenting. This is the cue. This is what people would say, a dog whistle to his followers whenever he says, I completely resent that. The people who are on Team Fauci are going to hear that and be like, okay, whatever he says, we're on his side. Attack orders. It's like, Irene, it's like, that's the code word. The code word is, I completely resent this. He completely resents this. Did you see Rand Paul attacking Dr. Fauci? He's such a bigot, racist, sexist, homophobe. He probably doesn't believe in transgenderism. That's how evil he is. Therefore, anything he says about COVID is not true. Right? Like, that's how they think, because they're godless commies. They've got reprobate minds. But when this guy, Dr. Fauci, is talking about, I completely resent this. I completely take offense. Right? He is moralizing the issue now. Fauci's no longer talking about medicine. Now Fauci is talking about the interdynamics of the people. And that's where he's going to try to turn this. Because Rand Paul is laser focused on the truth. What is the stuff that happened? The facts of the case. Fauci is trying to bring this into the realm of the emotional, which I thought he was a scientist. I thought he's supposed to be like a brilliant mind with a degree on the wall. But you understand whenever Fauci says Paul doesn't know what he's talking about. Paul, like a duck, lets that water right off the back. Paul's a smooth sailor, man. Like, that dude, he does really well here. He has weird hair, but he does really well.
Senator, because...
Ooh, that right there. Putting you on notice. This is literally like a pillar. Like, you're posting something. You remember those, like, warning or wanted posters? This is what that is. He is telling people, this is my warning sign. This is the directions to the next town. Go right for this. Do this. Warning, do not come onto my property. This is your warning sign. You're posting a warning. I'm telling you. This is the message. You just might as well write whatever I'm putting there and put on a sign. He's posting this. He's telling you. This is what's up.
If you look at the viruses that were used in the...
Look at him tell the story. Look at him tell the story from one to the next. From one to the next. The subtext here is there's a sequence, Rand Paul. There's a process, Senator. You're a bigot and you don't understand this, so let me try to communicate this. The other thing that he's doing is he's creating the world right in front of you. Right in front of you. You know how God said, let there be light, and there was light, and he made stuff like, boom. I don't know how he did it. The Bible just says he did, because it's true. But if Rand Paul's looking at this, if Fauci's looking at this, Fauci is creating the world in front of you. He's constructing the thing that he's been told in his head, either by other people or himself. He's saying those things, and he's trying to drive the conversation into what he's trying to create. Does that make sense? Like, he's creating the explanation right in front of you. That's what he's doing with his hands.
Experiments that were given in the annual reports that were published in the literature, it is molecularly impossible.
No one's...
Ooh, see, he was saying molecularly impossible. And either Rand Paul is smart and he knew it and his BS meter is just off the charts, or maybe it's just good timing. But that was when Fauci was going for the kill. Fauci was going for the kill, telling them the process, telling them how the world operates, right? He's building the world in front of you. And then to prove that he is the God in his head and he can create the world as he sees it, and now you should see it in his version, he's about to start using science words. It's molecularly impossible. Well, what do you think about whenever he says molecularly impossible? You're thinking, well, science and beakers and masks and probably a white lab coat and like people doing this and like holding it up and thinking about stuff. And you're like, oh, it's science. It's like, you're like, oh man, if that's impossible, I guess it's impossible. Maybe you might even like visualize a centrifuge in the background or something. Like, you know, definitely Bunsen burners, beakers, and like, you know, a periodic table of the elements. Like, you're thinking science stuff. Molecularly impossible. You're not going to be like, oh man, I wonder what he means by that. You're not going to say that. He knows that. He's using science words. He's using big words. The more syllables, the more BS. More syllables, the more BS. There's your takeaway. There's your shirt idea, by the way. Next, keep going.
Saying those viruses caused it. It is molecularly those viruses caused the pandemic.
And you see what Paul's doing. Paul is specifying the truth. He is going to the truth, and this is what people who speak the truth do. They are laser focused. They're not allowed to be focused over here. Don't be distracted over there. They're focused on, no, you took taxpayer dollars, you gave it to a Chinese laboratory, and they studied how stuff can come together so a virus can go to people more easily. That's what happened. That's what you did. You're involved with it. And Fauci's over here in his own world that he's constructed, trying to get people to think about the science, which people don't know about the science. People, whenever they hear science words, are going to be like, oh, wait, does that guy have a degree on the wall? Yep, okay, he's right. And folks, that's why I've got a PhD in stuffology. That's why my quantum PhD in stuffology is more important than what these guys have. It's really a BS detector is what it is. Keep going.
What we're alleging is that gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it. That is
Bingo.
Not away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating.
Look at his hands. Fauci is now fidgeting. Why does he have a rubber band? Why is he using a rubber band? Watch that hand. What is he doing? Your hands and the things that you're not focused on are going to be telling what's going on. And what he's trying to do, he's trying to get that rubber band, looks like he's trying to get that rubber band in some kind of order. But the rubber band is all over the place. But you realize, I'll clip it back here 2-3 seconds. Fauci repeats what Paul says. Fauci repeating what Paul says is a delay tactic. It means your mind is not synced with your mouth. So when someone says something and someone repeats back the allegation or repeats back the question, that is them stopwatching, giving themselves time for the brain to catch up. He's in uncharted territory, my friends. That's why he's doing stuff with the rubber band, but that's also why he just repeated the phrase that was given to him. Let me back this up. Go.
Research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That is
you can't
not-
get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating the truth.
Why did he have to say, I'm not obfuscating the truth? The way that you don't obfuscate the truth is say what the truth is. You don't advance the truth by saying you're not obfuscating the truth. When Jesus was accused, are you the Son of Man? He says, it is as you said. He didn't say, it's like, well, according to this thing, this Old Testament thing back now, this says that I could be. No, he says, it is as you say. Right? I am the great I am. No obfuscation. He ain't punking nobody. That guy isn't telling the truth.
Time is expired, but I will
Look,
allow...
rubber band.
Let me just finish.
Rubber band. He's an appeal. So to the chairwoman, I think it's Klobuchar from Minnesota, an appeal for sympathy. Please, he's reaching out, drowning. That's how a hand would like grab yours if it was like struggling to live, drowning in a river or something.
I want everyone to understand that if
he wants everyone to understand this is such a devilishly persuasive move. Do you see what Fauci's doing? Fauci's no longer talking to Rand Paul, who has nailed him down and has gotten him. What Fauci's now doing is, I want everyone to understand. Oh, how magnanimous of you. How selfless, how servant-hearted of you, Dr. Fauci. He wants me to understand what that bigot over there is trying to accuse him of is not true. Thank you, Dr. Fauci. Give us vaccines. I've got a throat pillow and I'm gonna die. Let's back up a little bit more. Watch the hand. Watch his eyes. Fauci's talking to all other people. He's communicating to them because he's in the hot seat. Remember, elevation change. He knows the heat is on. The heat is on. The heat is on. All right, back it up. Here we go. Watch.
Time is expired, but I will allow the witness to.
Let me just finish. I want everyone to understand that if you look at those viruses, and that's judged by qualified virologists and evolutionary biologists.
Qualified biologist and evolutionary qualified virologist and evolutionary biologist. By whose standard? Who says they're qualified? Do they tell the truth? They might have a degree, they might have intelligence, but do they have corruption? Do they have ill gain? Do they have profit motive? Do they have a hatred for country? Do they have a collusion type of attitude with things? Did y'all guys get together and say, you don't tell anybody and I'll give you money? It's like, I'm a scientist and I agree. Here we go. Oh, hold on. What did he say? Hold on, folks. What did he say? He said this, qualified virologist. I think that's how you spell it. So I am a, let me make this small real fast. So I am a qualified virologist, right? Let me just do this. I'm a qualified virologist, and whenever Rand Paul says is wrong, he's a liar, and he sucks. So Dr. Fauci, it doesn't matter that I got a book deal. It doesn't matter that I'm going to go on podcast. It doesn't matter that Olivia Rodrigo is going to be trafficked to my house this weekend, and we're going to have a pizza party. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm a qualified virologist, and I say whatever Dr. Fauci says is true. But you notice they don't even have that. What do they have? They have Fauci appealing to experts and what those experts are saying according to what Fauci says that they're saying. You don't have their testimony. You have a paper that they wrote. That doesn't mean that they're telling the truth. And it doesn't mean that the paper that they wrote says what you think it says. Did you understand that there's so much blame shifting? There's so much, oh, well, this paper says this and those virologists say this. It's like when people come up and they say, many people say, oh yeah, who? Who says? Who says those things? Don't advance your ambiguity as though it's truth. Stop appealing to the social proof whenever it's really like nobody, right? Like, don't do that. But you see, that is what he's doing. He is now performing for the people that are there and the people that are watching. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing because he can't handle it. The truth is too hot for one Anthony Fauci. Keep going.
Those viruses are molecularly impossible to resolve.
No one knows the viruses that caused the pandemic. We're saying they are gain-of-function viruses because they were animal viruses that became more transmissible in human, and you funded it. And you did the truth.
And you implied it.
Paul, your time has expired, and I will.
See how he's grabbing the mic? Him grabbing the mic is him trying to assert his voice over all the others. There's not a volume button on there, Fauci. You've been heard well before up to now. Why now grab the mic? Why now try to be in charge of the thing that communicates your perspective?
Will allow witnesses who come before this committee to respond.
And you are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals.
Fauci is speaking about Paul's motives. Paul is not speaking about Fauci's motives. That is ad hominem. He might be right. Like, yeah, I think Paul is implying that. But Fauci is throwing the first stone. Fauci's going against Paul on a personal level. Paul's just trying to figure out the facts. Fauci has himself taken offense to the facts at hand. That should tell you he's a coward, a liar, and a cabal member.
I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Ooh, you see that? I mean, that doesn't need explanation. That's pretty straightforward. Now, why is this the case? Why is this the case? In conclusion, we talked about all this stuff. I think one alternative for why Fauci could be telling the truth is if COVID, let's just say the virus, right? Let's say the virus was parceled out in different areas. This part was done here, this part was done, here, 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 and here. And then people took 1, 2, 3, 4 and put them together to get the whole thing, right? That's what I think might happen, a la ball bearings in World War II. Why is this the case? Why did I come to this conclusion? I think it fits. I think it fits because remember whenever I played for you at the very beginning of the live stream, Senator Marshall cross-examining Fauci with the S1 spike, Fauci said 2 things that I think make this case. He said 2 things that make this case, I think. This is the first thing that he said.
But that's irrelevant to anything until you have a context in which you're putting it.
Now, the context that Fauci is trying to reject is that Kennedy is saying that this S1 protein, which is just medical stuff, this was in the lab, and the exact same thing, or something that looks like the exact same thing, is in the virus. So if the exact same specific thing was in this Wuhan lab as is in this virus, aren't those 2 things linked? That's the implication that Senator Marshall was getting at. Now, Fauci said that you have to have this context. You have to have this relationship. You can't just have an S1 protein just floating around out there. It's got to come from somewhere. And Fauci's point is that he's saying that this connection didn't happen. And this is the specific context that Fauci is saying you have to have. He's basically saying, hey, Senator, where are you saying that this S1 protein comes from? Fauci is not denying that the S1 protein is present in the virus. He's not denying that the S1 protein is in the lab. He is denying that the S1 protein that is in the lab is the same as the virus, because that would mean that these 2 things are linked. He is denying this right there. Why is he doing that? Because he holds up the paper from his colleagues, Barrick and Shee, or whatever their names are, Barrick and Shee, he's holding up their paper about this. This is where my hypothesis of they've parceled it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. If the Wuhan laboratory was just one part in the whole process of manufacturing that virus, then Fauci can say morally, ethically, truthfully, that no, Wuhan was not responsible for all of it. What if Wuhan didn't make the S1 protein? What if that was not where Wuhan was? Or what if that was not what was produced in Wuhan? What if the S1 protein was put over here, maybe in Istanbul or wherever else, whatever other godless commie place? Because Istanbul's led by a Islamic, jihadist. If this is the case, he could theoretically, legally, truthfully say the Wuhan lab wasn't responsible for the spike protein. That's why I came up with this model. And why is this the case? Why is this the case? Because whenever that Senator Marshall pressed on the idea that the S1 protein that's out there, that everyone's talking about, this is the thing that kills people, like inflammatory lungs and stuff like that, that senator is saying that's the same thing as the virus. He's saying those 2 things are equal. He's saying the S1 protein that's killing everybody, that all the bad stuff's happening, that came from the lab and is the exact same thing as the virus. And he's asking Fauci, don't you think that this is the case? Don't you, the immunologist, the virologist, who's in charge of giving taxpayer dollars to people who study this crap, don't you think that this is the case? Don't you have the modicum of expertise to say that this is the case? And you remember, Penn, you remember whenever Fauci said to Paul, you don't know anything that you're talking about? Listen what Fauci had to say to Senator Marshall when Senator Marshall said, hey, aren't these 2 things the same thing? Listen to what Fauci has to say.
Or disagree that it's the same spike.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Senator. I'm really not sure what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I'm really not sure what you're talking about. Fauci is not sure that the specific S1 protein that was in the lab of Wuhan, that is an exact genetic replica to the S1 protein that's killing everybody from the virus, he's not sure that those two things are the same. But yet he can look at Paul with his finger in his face, two fingers, both barrels blasting away at Rand Paul, telling him he doesn't know what he's talking about. Dude's a godless commie. And that is the Timbre of Timbre, which means moving forward, people are going to appeal to authority. What authority do they appeal to? Jarrin, Christians, appeal to the Bible. Why? Because that's how God chose to talk to us. The Bible is God's word. That's the truth. So whenever I hear Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci, and let's say I'm apolitical, which is at this point in the world is hard to be, but it's like, let's say I'm apolitical. How do I determine the truth? The truth is, Fauci's testimony, in my opinion, seems to be contradictory to Senator Marshall. He's like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. What's the specific context, Senator? What's the specific? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Well, why is he saying he's not sure? If he says he's sure, he's culpable of the outcome. If he says he's sure, he's making a factual truth claim. He could be made liable to that. That's a judgment call. He's now saying, yes, that's the case. He can be prosecuted by that. Whereas whenever he goes to Rand Paul, he says, there's experts at every line of the chain have said that this is the... I don't know why I went like British/Australian right there. But the idea is that Fauci's appealing to experts. And experts have verified that this is the case, and you don't know what you're talking about. If you use the scriptures, Jesus says in Matthew 5:37, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything else is of the evil one. When you're asked straight questions, it pays to have a straight answer. Now, the only other thing, and I'll say this for Fauci in order to completely address my bias. If you are asked a yes or no question and the person has a false premise, then any question you ask or any way you answer is going to be wrong. And that person who's asking with the false premise, if they're trying to shove you into a yes or no outcome, they're full of crap if they're not willing to examine their own biases and assumptions going into the question. For example, do your parents know that you're gay? That's a false premise. There's no such thing as that. There's such thing as fornication. There's not a such thing as gay associated with same-sex attraction. Ain't happening. It's a choice. It's someone's choice to do that. But that's not my point. The point is a question. The question is, do your parents know that you're gay? Either answer that I give assumes that I am. But what if I'm not? If I'm not, then the question is built on a false premise that I am. So if Rand Paul is asking Fauci, did you lie? That's either a yes or no question. But it's based on the fact that the truth can be known based on what Fauci said previously. And what did Fauci do in response to that question? You don't know what you're talking about. I resent the premise. Stop the onslaught. I resent the fact that you've said that I'm liable and culpable for all these things. And evolutionary biologist, you believe in evolution? You're automatically a dumb moron. It's like, of course I don't believe what an evolutionary biologist does. The guy thinks we come from monkeys. I'm sorry, I'm not over here. Someone got a PhD in monkology? Sorry, bro. That's not an authority I want to build on. That's shifting sand if I ever thought. But you think about what Fauci did. He obfuscated. He blame shifted. He did the performance. He appealed to everybody in the audience. One person was speaking truthfully. One person was deceiving. And he tried many tactics in the book, many playbooks, a robust playbook. Moving forward, how this matters to you. Why did I spend so much time on this? If you can get at the point where you can see this, you're going to be more effective responding to it. And I shouldn't even have said more effective. It's just that you're going to be better aware of how Satan moves about and does stuff, because that's how he does. He does deception, and deception is, many people are so clever at it, so smooth at it, so good at it. How do you respond to this? This is where I will beat the drum and say, preach the gospel. I will beat the drum and say, live local. Become resilient and sturdy yourself, become hardy and resilient and resistant against these godless commies. Preach the gospel, demand the truth, read the Bible. Someone comes up to you and says you have to have this daisy, be like, yo, I don't see this in the Bible anywhere. And here's the other thing, the last thing. Fauci assumed the standard of authority. Experts, PhDs, virologists, immunologists. Are those immunologists and virologists and the people who do all this stuff, does their authority and expertise in their medical scientific field cross over and supersede my authority, your authority in non-scientific medical fields? Because they deal with virology and death and immunology and all this other stuff, do their expertise, does their authority cross over to other categories and supersede established authority? I am my son's father. Does Fauci's PhD in virology cross over to my family and supersede my authority as father? No. Not at all. That's how people have to start thinking. These godless commies are using experts to cross over into other categories, other spheres of influence and authority, and trying to supersede by going on offense. In a nutshell, that's what they're doing. Just took me, 1 hour and 25 minutes to get at it. Anyway, the most important thing I can tell you is the gospel of Jesus Christ, the death, the burial, the resurrection. You and I broke God's law. Jesus paid the fine. That's what he did on the cross. He took our place. He took our place so we could spend eternity with him. He took our place so we could know his richness, his abundance, his joy, his love, his patience, his peace. So much goodness. He also took our place so we don't have to burn forever in a conscious, eternal, tormented lake of fire. So don't be pugnacious. Don't be prideful. Repent of your sin. Trust in the resurrected Christ. You do that, you're going to go to heaven. You don't, you will go to hell. Folks, this is listener supported, 100% on you guys. I want to say thank you very much. I have no corporate sponsors. You really think that there's a business out there that's going to want me to talk like this, the way that I talk like this? I offend everybody. Even myself. If you want to support, you can do the PayPal, Venmo links. I got Subscribestar also for those folks that just want to put it on autopilot and forget about it. We like those folks. We like all the people that support. We like the people who don't. You don't, you watch, it's fine. Please pray. Pray for my dad. Pray for my mom. Mom's walking around better. Dad is zapping the radiation. He's zapping the cancer with the radiation. Ammo stuff, the credit card processor, the magic rocks. The credit card processor is good. So now my clickety-clack guy has to tie everything together, and he's supposed to be working on that this evening. He's probably watching me instead of doing his stuff. So clickety-clack, get on it. You know what I'm saying? And then once we figure that out, I will be the first customer to make sure everything works. And then whenever that's done, we'll go. So follow me on Telegram. Watch this here because that's where I'm going to push it out. I'm not going to try to advertise to anybody. I want to keep this in-house between me and you. This is between me and you. This is not between us and everybody else. This is us, right? Like we're building the Live Local, the Patriots, the Christians. Like we are making this team, this cohesive unit that wants to go out, preach the gospel, go out, go to war, spiritually speaking, win back their country, but most importantly, win lost souls to Christ. Because that's what I'm about. I'm doing everything to God's glory because that's what I care about. I want to stand in front of the Creator and I want to say, God, I wanted to give you everything. I want to give you everything. And if I can come up with crazy ideas like hospital things with the DBR on it, like, amen. Roger that, let's go it. You guys have to suffer the fact that my brain is all over the place. If you think that's chaotic, try living in my head. Anyway, the links are in the description below. I appreciate your time. God bless you. I'm Jarrin Jackson. I love America. Now go to war.